Welcome to this on-demand webinar for Autodesk Revit LT. My name is Simon Gillis and I'm a Technical Specialist Manager here at Autodesk. The aim of the webinar is very much as a high-level overview to give you an introduction to Revit LT, and for those of you who are non-Revit users to really understand the benefits of Revit LT to your business. I'm also going to explain the differences between full Revit and Revit LT. Before I do that, let's just talk a little bit about Autodesk and building information modelling. As a company, we started 32 years ago, and many people know us as the AutoCAD company. And whilst that is still a mainstay of our business, we have many other products serving many different industries. So why is that important? Well, we can take the knowledge from different industries and cross-transfer them into others. Think about media and entertainment and high-end visualization. We can take the visualization and put that into architecture. Think about prefabrication in manufacturing. We can take what we learn in manufacturing and put that into the construction industry. So really at the core of what we do, it's about data-driven design. And building information modelling is really central to that for our architecture, engineering and construction industries. This is really about how you as customers can design and deliver projects much more efficiently. It's also important to note that BIM itself is transforming. Going back, say, 10 years, it was very much focused on the building itself, but now it's also equally applicable to infrastructure, and process plant and industrial. And it's also about the entire life cycle. Think about going from initial concept design right through to operation and maintenance and subsequent demolition and recommissioning of assets. An important thing to really note here is that if you haven't already embraced building information modelling, it is a transformational strategy for the industry. Now is the time to understand how it can help you to improve efficiency, design more sustainably, and become more profitable. So let's talk now about Revit LT. On the screen you see two different products. One is AutoCAD Revit LT Suite and the other is Revit LT. And just to highlight what Revit LT Suite is, with Revit LT you have the core product there as a building information modelling authoring tool, but alongside that, if you buy the suite, it can be Autodesk AutoCAD LT. So if you need to maintain DWG workflows, if you need to process drawings, if you want to perhaps have a workflow where you still do certain aspects within AutoCAD, you can do that if you purchase the suite. It sits alongside your Revit LT. So back to Revit LT then. What is it really about? Well, it's really about a model-based approach to design. The model is at the heart of everything that you need to deliver, whether that be general arrangement drawings or visualizations or schedules. You are going to get those from the model itself. It's really about a holistic approach to the building. So you're going to be able to produce documentation more efficiently, it's going to be better coordinated, it's going to give you more power to visualize and communicate more clearly. And also, you can coordinate with other stakeholders using Revit workflows. For Revit LT, it's really about easing your transition to building information modelling. If you've not made the leap yet, if you haven't invested in products such as Revit, then Revit LT is a good on-ramp to do so. It's very much focused on users who don't need advanced collaboration with many different stakeholders. So for example, multiple users on one model. It's very much focused on those who may be modelling in isolation. But it is fully compatible with Revit, so you can swap Revit files between different individuals and stakeholders. Also to note, we have a service called Autodesk 360, which is our cloud service, and this is part of cloud subscription. As for Revit LT, what you're going to get with that as part of subscription is the ability to render online, to collaborate, and also to store files and documents within our cloud service. An important benefit that's a value add for Revit LT. Let's now look at some of the functionality behind Autodesk Revit LT. And the first aspect that I want to focus on is the single coordinated model. You really are designing with a holistic tool that enables you to create a virtual prototype of your building. In this example, we have a retail store. And what you'll notice is this isn't just an elevation. If we actually orbit, you'll see the actual model itself. So what we're doing here is building up a virtual prototype of our building. It's going to enable us to optimize the design, look at many different options, understand the design intent better, and of course coordinate with other stakeholders. Every view that I need to deliver is going to be just another view of that model. So for example, with the general arrangement drawing, here I have really a horizontal slice through that model. If I have an elevation, you'll see that I also have shadows cast on that because the elements understand their relationships in the three-dimensional space between them. We can go from early concept right through to detailed design. I'll cover this a little bit later on in the webinar. But also, we may be looking at schedules. And this schedule is not something that I've manually entered, it's just another view of the model. So with the model coordination, what you'll see is that we have the ability to manage change. So if I go into the back of store here, and I'm just going to draw onto here a section line using my section tool, like so. And what you'll see is that as I double click on that section head, it takes me to that section. It's automatically been created. I'm just going to tile these two together. And what you'll see is as I move the section line, the section is actually live. So as I move that, the view on the left hand side automatically updates. But if I now zoom in to this door, what you'll see is as I select the door in the plan, it also highlights in the section. This is because you're not drawing lines, arcs and circles to portray the door. You're actually putting in an element that is a door, and it only exists once in the database. So now if I need to make a change, I can change very, very quickly. All I need to do is change the type of door. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this to an opposing swing door. As you can see, it's changed the representation in the section and in the plan. But what it's also done, if I just come down to that door schedule again, you'll see that door number 24 is now an opposing swing door. If I changed it from here to a double swing door, like so, you'll see that again, it's updated that. So it's managing change. A change can happen anywhere, but it's a change everywhere. And that's the real power behind Autodesk Revit LT. As you move to building information modeling, you're probably wondering how easy it is to do so. You're used to drafting by hand or using computer-aided design, and you may have concerns about how easy it is to create models using the tools available. I'd like to now take you through some of that so that you can see how Autodesk Revit LT is easy to use. So let's start by looking at the user interface. Here we have the ribbon bar, and on that you have tabs where you can access the various commands to create the building model. What you'll see, for example, here on the Architecture tab is we have various architectural components. If I select the Wall tool, I only get options for walls. This makes the product easy to learn because you're getting the information you want when you need it. So I'm going to create that wall now. What you'll see is as I have the Wall tool selected, in the Properties palette I have various types of walls that I can select. And as I come across to this plan view, I can simply go in and click no more than 3 times and create this wall. It's got its thickness, it's got its height, it's hatched accordingly, and you'll see on the left hand side that it's also created it 3-dimensionally. If I want to create a door, I select the door tool, can't place the door into free space. As soon as I come to the wall, it enables me to place that door and it cuts the hole for it. At any time I can make a change. I don't have to be specific about the type of door or its position, so I could flip the orientation of it like so. What I could also do is I could change where it resides. So in Revit LT it's very much dimension driven. If I want to move something, I change the dimension. But what I could also do is build in a relationship between that door and that wall by locking it. So now if I need to make a design change, I'm just going to make this room longer. And what you'll see is the wall moves, but the relationship between the wall and the door is maintained. This is going to reduce the amount of manual effort required to produce your documentation. It's going to mean that you've got more time to design. What you may have noticed as I placed those walls is that the area of the pharmacy reduced. These walls are designated as room bounding, so when I cut one space with those walls, it automatically decreases. This means that doing things like area schedules is much quicker. I can now place a room into that area like so, and you'll see that it's not just a tag, it's actually information about the room. It can have different design criteria applied to it. It can be giving you the areas, but also can be used in things like colour fill plans. So that's not only residing in that view. If I now come to the room data sheet and I come down to my schedule, I see room number 35, it's consulting. I've not manually entered this, it's what I've done when I've placed the room itself, but I can add additional information to it. So I could say what department it belongs to. I could say what type of room it is. Now this is something called a schedule key, which means that when I say it's a general office, it automatically fills out the various information that I require about the room. So very easy for me to create elements and objects. I'm sure you'll agree. So very powerful in terms of being able to learn the product, to create the building information modeling easily, whilst being able to create your traditional deliverables in a very easy manner too. A significant benefit of building information modeling is the ability to design in a three-dimensional environment and then to really use that to visualize and communicate more successfully. So let's take a look at how you can achieve that with Autodesk Revit LT. With the model, I can really cut and slice it as I require, so it gives me greater insight into how the building fits together. And here, using great functionality such as the section box, I can control how I'm viewing that. So very easy for me to go in and actually review the model itself. I can see, for example, here I have the staircase. I don't have the actual headroom correct, so I need to make a change to that before it ever gets on site. So it gives me really good design insight. So the capability here is vast in terms of understanding of the design, but also it's a very powerful visualization tool. Let's just change this to a fine level of detail, as you can see there. And what I can also do is I can change the look and feel. So I could change this to a hidden line view. What I could also do is maybe I want to make it a little bit more sketchy. So just going to go into this new option called Sketchy Lines. This is new in 2015. Change the jitter value and change the extension value, select apply, and I get a very hand-drawn look and feel. I can cast shadows onto it as well, because obviously the elements understand their relationship and we can cast shadows from that. So I'm still able to orbit around that whilst maintaining that sketchy look and feel. So it just gives you another option that you might want to use when really communicating with clients or other stakeholders in the design team. But we can also move that on to a higher level of visualization. So I can place cameras around my model and I can do perspective views of that. I can have different settings, for example, day and night time. And what I can do is I can then go and render that. So just going to come up to another view here, and this is the store entrance. I'm going to come to my view tab and I'm going to render that in the cloud. So what I'm able to do is get a visualization from this using the power of cloud computing. So I can set some various parameters such as the quality of render that I want, the image size, the file format that I require the output to be in, and I can hit the start render button. It will gather some data from the scene and then it will process it up on our cloud computing. So what this enables us to do now is just to continue working in the background. So as that is being processed up on the cloud, we're able to just carry on with our modeling. We're not tying up our machine with the visualization process. And when that's ready, what we can do is we can go up to the render gallery, where we will log into our Autodesk 360 account, and what we will get then is our different views that we've created. So again, a really useful tool, maybe if you're looking at doing marketing images, if you're doing planning application images, if you're communicating with the various stakeholders on the project, being able to create a visualization directly from Revit is very, very powerful. And that's what you can see here with this rendering functionality. Okay, so that's the rendering capability. It may be that you also want to look at other ways of really communicating. So here, for example, is a color fill plan. And what we have here is a legend. So this is what we call really a color scheme. And rather than post-processing that you may do in today in another application with your DWG files, we can actually assign a range of colors, in this case Pantone colors, to model information. So it's directly taken from the model. If you remember back to earlier in the demonstration, we added this consulting room. Notice it's automatically got a color assigned based on its room name. This really gives us the ability to streamline our process. We're just creating that model element, and how we then view that can be controlled, but it means that we're not spending so much time really to post-process to output and improve our visualization. So really beneficial aspect of Autodesk Revit LT. An important aspect of building information modelling is being able to produce high quality documentation. Let's now take a look at how Autodesk Revit LT can help you in your documentation process. In this example, I'm going to annotate this partial elevation, and as I drag the tags over the building elements, you'll see that it automatically picks up the description of the element. So whichever view I tag this particular element in, the annotation is always going to be consistent. So it's going to help reduce miscommunication of design intent. Also, if I just select a specific panel here and I change this from a glazed panel to a solid panel, what happens is that it automatically updates the annotation, again maintaining consistency and reducing the potential for error. Let's move on then and look at details. So I'm just going to open up a view, and what you'll see here is if I just zoom in, I've got really a section through the building. So I have the actual roof here, which is part of the model itself, and actually embellished on that section is two-dimensional information. So here we have insulation bat. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Here we have, for example, a fixing to the wall. This is two-dimensional. I haven't had to actually model this, but it's what I need. It's the right amount of information I need to communicate the detailed information. You'll see here that I actually have a tag that's consistent with what we did in the previous elevation because it's picking it up from the element description. So we can actually produce the full range of documentation from concept right through to detailed design with Revit LT. But what we can also do, if I just open up a sheet view here, what we can also do is tie that 2D information to the underlying three-dimensional model. So just to show you that, if I activate this view and I select the dock shelter, and I actually change the height of that to 1050 to better accommodate a articulated lorry, select apply. If I just deactivate that view now and zoom into the detail that's on that sheet, what's happened is that the two-dimensional information has moved up with the dock shelter. So really helping us to maintain consistency in the documentation when we make a change to the model. So a very powerful function of Revit LT that really helps with that documentation process. If you're using Revit LT, what's good to know is that you can share files with people using the full version of Revit. Let's take a look at how some of that workflow may happen in practice. You may be working on a project where the building services engineer is developing the building information model with their ducting and pipe work using the MEP variant of Revit or the Building Design Suite full version of Revit. So as you can see here, you have that capability to develop those models. Now, even though you can't create these within Revit LT, you can certainly use the file and link it into your project. When inside Revit LT, what we can simply do is reload the file or link the file for the first time, and what you'll see is that we get that same ductwork and pipework model from the building service engineer appearing within our architectural model. So as we can see, very straightforward and easy to use. We can go on and really interpret the design, understand where we may have potential problems with that. So a workflow between other stakeholders who may be using the full version of Revit is achievable within Autodesk Revit LT. Just to reiterate, there is also the option of buying the AutoCAD Revit LT suite. So rather than just a standalone product on its own, you also get AutoCAD LT, which will help you with AutoCAD workflows should you need them. So in the suite, you have access to AutoCAD LT 2015. You may want to maintain a DWG workflow. Now, Revit LT does indeed import and export DWGs, but you may want to clean up DWGs when you get them, or you may want a workflow whereby you may do the majority of your work in Revit LT, but then do something like detailing inside AutoCAD. You have that capability. Here you can see we have AutoCAD LT 2015, so the full range of drafting tools that will bring you. Maybe you have a development plan that you've got like so, want to add some hatching to it, then you can just import that into Revit LT and use that as your key plan. Very straightforward and easy to do, and a great benefit of having access to AutoCAD as well as to Revit LT. So you've now seen some of the functionality of Revit LT, and hopefully that's enthused you to look at this in more detail. Just want to touch on the differences between Revit LT and full Revit. First to note is that there's no network version of Revit LT, it only comes standalone licensed. Also, there's no work sharing. So this means in full Revit, the ability to work set information to break the model down logically into different components to share among different stakeholders, or to be able to borrow elements on the fly so that multiple workers can work on the same file at one time. This is really about single user for Revit LT. There's no in-product rendering, but as you've seen, there's great value in being able to use the cloud rendering service. And also there's no energy analysis or structural simulation. Also, there's no extensibility through the programming interface. So where people have created third-party add-ons for Revit, these can't be used with Revit LT. If you'd like to know more about Revit LT and Revit comparisons, then I would suggest going to the Autodesk.com website, Revit LT product pages, where we have a full comparison matrix between both AutoCAD LT and Revit LT, and between Revit LT and Revit. Okay, so the call to action for you now that you've seen this webinar: visit the product pages that I've highlighted. If you want to, download the 30-day trial and give it a go yourself, but also talk to your reseller. We here at Autodesk sell through a reseller channel, and they are best placed to give you advice on how you can move into building information modeling through Revit LT. Thank you for listening to this webinar today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.